Good morning everyone, I'm Pei En. Today, I will explain what is Sale of Goods Contract. A Sale of Goods Contract is governed by the Sale of Goods Act 1957 in Malaysia. It is a legal agreement between two parties, the seller and the buyer. In this contract, the buyer agrees to pay a price while the seller agrees to transfer the ownership of the goods. Therefore, both the buyer and the seller have legal rights and responsibilities under the law. That's all for the introduction to the Sale of Goods Contract. Now, I would like to pass it to Yu Huan.
Thank you, Pei En. After learning what a Sale of Goods Contract is, let's look at the Sale of Goods Act 1957. The Sale of Goods Act 1957 is the main law that governs the sale of goods in Malaysia. It applies to contracts between buyers and sellers. This act explains the rights and responsibility of both parties. It also provides legal rules to make sure that buying and selling goods is fair and protects both buyers and sellers. The act covers several important areas, including the seller's right to sell goods under Section 14, sale by description under Section 15, and sale by sample under Section 16. Today, our presentation focuses on Section 15, which is one of the key sections in the Act. Next, Chloe will introduce Section 15 and explain its legal meaning. I will now pass the presentation to Chloe.
Thank you, Yu Huan. Moving on to the main focus of our presentation, which is Section 15 of the Sale of Goods Act 1957. Section 15 provides that where there's a contract for the sale of goods by description, there's an implied condition that the goods shall correspond with the description. This means that when a seller provides a description of the goods, the description becomes part of sales contract, and the seller is legally required to supply goods that correspond with the description stated in the contract. Therefore, Section 15 protects buyers by ensuring that they receive goods according to the terms agreed with the seller. To further understand when Section 15 applies, my groupmate Wazif will explain the meaning of a sale by description.
Thank you, Chloe. I'm Irfan, and today I will be explaining the meaning of sale by description. A sale by description occurs when goods are sold based on the description by the sellers. In this situation, the description is not merely an advertisement, but it forms part of the agreement between the parties. This concept commonly applies when buyers cannot fully inspect the products before purchasing, such as on online transactions on platforms such as Shopee, Amazon's, catalog sales, or sealed products. Therefore, Section 15 requires seller to ensure that the goods supplied are consistent with the description used in the contract. Next, Jonathan will be explaining the meaning of goods must correspond with the description and the legal consequences if this requirement is not fulfilled.
Thank you, Wazif. I will now explain about the phrase goods must correspond with the description. It means that the goods supplied must be the same as the goods described in the contract. This includes important features such as the identity, quality, quantity, or other characteristics that have been specifically described by the seller. If the goods provided do not match the contractual description, the seller may have breached the implied condition under Section 15. In such circumstances, the buyer may be entitled to legal remedies such as reject, replace, or claim compensation, depending on the situation. The application of this principle can be seen through court decisions. Now, Kahui will now discuss a Malaysian case related to Section 15.
Thank you, Jonathan. To further understand the applications of Section 15, we will now look at a Malaysia case, Wasco Lindong Sdn Bhd v Luster Metals and Minerals Sdn Bhd. In this case, the dispute involved whether the goods supplied by the seller complied with the description agreed in the contract. The main issue before the court was whether the good delivery matched the contractual requirements and descriptions provided by the seller. The court considered the importance of the descriptions stated in the agreement because the description formed part of the contractual obligations between the parties. This case demonstrates that when goods are be sold based on a description, seller must ensure that the goods supply complete with what has been agreed. Failure to do so may result in a breach of the buyer's right under the Sales of Goods Act. Besides Malaysia case law, the principle that goods must strictly correspond with their descriptions was also established in an important English case. Yunqi will now further explain about it. I will now pass it to Yunqi.
Thank you, Kahui. Another important case related to Section 15 is Arcos Limited versus E.A. Ronason and Son, decided in 1933. In this case, the seller agreed to supply timber according to a specific description. However, the timber delivered did not exactly match the description stated in the contract. The buyer rejected the goods, and the dispute went to court. The court held that the buyer was entitled to reject the goods because the seller had failed to comply with the agreed description. This case established the principle that when goods are sold by description, the seller must strictly follow the description stated in the contract, even if the difference may appear minor. Therefore, Arcos versus Ronason demonstrates the importance of Section 15 in ensuring that buyers receive goods that are consistent with what was agreed. After understanding the legal rules and case decisions, the final presenter will discuss how Section 15 applies in modern situations and summarize our presentation. I will now pass the presentation to Ijam.
Thank you, Yinqi. Now I will talk about how Section 15 applies in our daily life. For supermarket, even though customer can see the product directly, they still depend on the information provided by the seller. For example, when buying food, customers trust the label because they use these information to make their decision. If the actual product is different from what is stated, the seller may be responsible under Section 15. For online shopping, Section 15 becomes even more important because customers cannot check the product before purchasing. They need to trust the seller description, picture, and product detail. For example, if a customer receives a different item or a product with different quality, it may be considered a breach of Section 15. To conclude, Section 15 helps to protect consumers by ensuring sellers provide correct information. It also helps to create a fair and truthful business environment. Thank you.